North's Mirror of Madness is probably my favorite melodic death metal album of all time. Hello everybody, my name is Chris, and today I'm gonna try to replicate the guitar sound of Mirror of Madness. Let's do this! Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome back to the channel. Now, like I said in the beginning, Mirror of Madness is probably my favorite melodic death metal album of all times. I'm gonna try to pronounce the band members' names during this video as well as the producer's name, and I'm not a native Finnish speaker, so I might screw up a bit. I'm trying to be as respectful as possible, but yeah, any mispronunciations, please excuse them. Now, Mirror of Madness was released in 2003 and was recorded, mixed and mastered at Astia Studio by Anssi Kippo. The guitar players at that time were Petri Lindros and Christian Ranta. Petri Lindros is, as you probably know, also the main vocalist and one of the guitar players in Ensiferum. He has been in that band since 2004. He also plays with Satanic North, a black metal band, and now recently, 2 years ago I think, he also joined Warman. Now, what I love about Anssi Kippo's approach to recording guitars is that it is very basic. If you haven't seen it, he has a website for his Astia Studio where he posts blog entries. And in these blog entries for different bands, Children of Bodom, Ensiferum, Norther, you can find like details about how he records. And most of the time, it's just an amp, a cab, and a single mic. And an SM58 at that. So this should give us enough hints and material in order to try to replicate that sound. Now, we don't know what exact head Norther were using when they recorded Mirror of Madness, but we can find entries on the Astia Studio blog that the studio owned a 5150 Make 1. So it is pretty much likely that they used that head. What is also very interesting is that around the same time, Children of Bodom recorded Hate Crew Death Roll at the studio. And they, according to Anssi, used the 5150 as well to layer it with Alexis and Alexander's gear back then. So my setup for today is pretty much just a 5150 head. That's the modern EVH Stealth 50 watt head. Then a Marshall 4x12 loaded with vintage 30s. And then I'm going to use an SM58. And we'll see where it takes me. For the guitar, I'm using a Jackson JS32, so not an expensive guitar at all. What I did upgrade though were the pickups. In this guitar now are EMG bone breakers, which are not as hot as your regular 81-85 combo, but they still give you a lot of clarity and a lot of distortion, or rather saturation and compression. The coolest practice about Astia Studio is how Anssi records everything onto tape. Now, I don't have a tape machine, I wish I had, but for me today it's just the guitar signal, the mic signal into a preamp, that's the Behringer Ultra Gain 8200 or whatever it is called, and to the Focusrite 8920. Right now you can see the amp settings of the 5150 Stealth. As you can see, I got rid of a lot of mids and a fair amount of bass, but we kept the highs intact. Presence really turned down. Still, because of the placement of the mic, which we're going to talk about in a second, it has enough sizzle to really cut through. Right now I'm going to show you where I'm placing the mic. Again, this is a 58 with the grill removed, just like Anssi does it. He might have used a different microphone back then, but according to his blog, that is usually his microphone of choice. What I love about the sound and the setup is just how bare bones it is, and it sounds freaking amazing. I adore that sound. It reminds me so much of my teenage years and how I listened to that album over and over and over again. And of course it's cool to, you know, mess around with different miking techniques and different microphones and all that. But I think this is one of those cases where if you can't get a good sound out of this setup, then you probably have to mess around more with different cabs and different microphones instead of applying equalizers and, I don't know, a variety of preamps or whatever. So yeah, this was super fun, and it wasn't actually that hard to get to that sound. The most obvious difference, I think, when you compare my sound to the sound on the album, is how the gain structure is just a bit different. I think it is a bit more mushy on the album, but not in a bad way. It distorts a bit more. If the 5150 that Astia Studio owned was used back then, that has obviously an entire different gain structure compared to the modern 5150 Stealth that I'm using. Still, it's close enough, I would say. Let me know in the comments if you want me to try to replicate other guitar sounds. Doesn't matter if it's Norther or Children of Bodom or melodic death metal or whatever. This is super fun, and yeah, it's a good challenge for the ears, for the hands, just for engineering to try to get to these sounds. I'm gonna do a video on Hate Crew Death Roll for sure. If you've seen my Marshall DSL-15 video, I already kind of allured to that with a quick demo with the Alexi 600, and hopefully I will see you in that video then. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Chris, and that's that.